Welcome to SA News Weekly News Update. We'll cover the top stories from across the United States, important developments worldwide, and new insights from the world of health and science.
In a significant constitutional development this Thursday, the United States Senate has advanced a bipartisan war powers resolution aimed at limiting the executive branch's authority to conduct further military operations in Venezuela. The 52-47 vote follows a weekend raid by U.S. Special Forces in Caracas that resulted in the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro. While the operation was characterized by the administration as the execution of a standing arrest warrant for narco-terrorism, it has sparked a sharp debate on Capitol Hill regarding the scope of presidential military power. The resolution, spearheaded by a coalition including Democratic Senator Tim Kaine and Republican Senator Rand Paul, requires the president to seek formal congressional authorization before engaging in additional hostilities against Venezuela. The White House has responded with a firm rejection of the Senate's move. In a series of statements, the president described the war powers resolution as unconstitutional and argued that it greatly hampers American self-defense and national security. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Agriculture have officially released the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2025-2030, marking the most radical shift in federal nutrition policy in over 3 decades. Unveiled on Wednesday by HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins, the new guidelines center on a single directive: eat real food. The administration has retired the My Plate graphic, replacing it with an inverted food pyramid that prioritizes whole food proteins and healthy fats while placing refined carbohydrates and sugars at the narrowest point of the diagram. The new policy formally declares war on added sugars, recommending 0 added sugar for children under the age of 10 and a dramatic reduction for adults. Secretary Kennedy stated during the briefing that the U.S. is facing a national health emergency, noting that the vast majority of healthcare spending is currently dedicated to chronic diseases linked to metabolic health. The guidelines also represent a reversal on previous advice regarding saturated fats. The new standard removes the long-standing stigma against animal fats like butter and beef tallow, instead emphasizing their role as essential nutrients when sourced from minimally processed origins. International tensions reached a new peak this week, following the U.S. European Command's announcement that it had boarded and seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker, the Marinera, in the Atlantic Ocean. The operation, which took place on Wednesday, concluded a 2-week pursuit that began in the Caribbean. U.S. officials alleged the vessel was violating international sanctions by transporting Venezuelan oil intended for global markets. The White House has signaled that the crews of such vessels could face prosecution in the United States, further escalating the legal stakes of the blockade. The Kremlin has responded with a sharp condemnation, describing the seizure as piracy and a violation of international maritime law. Tensions between Washington and Moscow are already at a delicate stage as negotiations continue regarding a potential peace framework in Ukraine. The capture of the Russian vessel is seen by many analysts as a strategic move to sever the economic lifeline between Caracas and its primary global allies. Moscow has indicated it will take necessary measures to protect its maritime interests, though it has not specified what those actions might entail. The United Nations has issued a grave warning this Thursday as fighting intensifies in northern Syria, particularly in and around the city of Aleppo. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed being deeply alarmed by the escalating hostilities between government troops and Kurdish forces. The renewed conflict has led to the displacement of tens of thousands of civilians who were already struggling in the wake of years of instability. The recent clashes represent a breakdown of local ceasefires that had been held for several months. Reports from the ground indicate significant civilian casualties and the destruction of critical infrastructure, including water and power facilities. Humanitarian aid lifelines are currently under severe strain as winter storms batter the region, making the situation for those in temporary shelters increasingly desperate. The UN has called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and to allow for the safe passage of aid convoys into the most affected neighborhoods. Researchers at the University of Illinois have developed a groundbreaking imaging system to watch plants breathe in high definition. Using Stomata Insight technology, scientists can now observe the microscopic pores on a leaf as they open and close to exchange gases and water. This allows for the first ever direct observation of how crops respond to drought stress at a cellular level. The breakthrough is expected to accelerate the development of climate-resilient crops that can maintain productivity with significantly less water. In a significant humanitarian effort this Thursday, the Annapurna campaign, led by followers of Sant Rampal Ji Maharaj, has successfully addressed a 2-decade-old waterlogging crisis in Godli village, Fatehabad. Known locally as SEM, this severe soil salinity and flooding had rendered thousands of acres of farmland unusable, leaving local farmers in a state of economic despair. Following the reported failure of various administrative attempts to solve the issue, the organization's social welfare wing intervened by donating and installing a massive 13,200-foot-long high-density pipeline. The project, which included high-power motors and technical equipment, was executed entirely by volunteers at zero cost to the villagers. By January 8th, water levels began to recede, allowing farmers to prepare their land for the upcoming sowing season for the first time in years. This initiative is part of the broader Kisan Masi, or Farmers' Savior mission, which recently saw similar large-scale interventions in Jind and Jhajjar. Alongside this, a mega cleaning campaign was also launched in Charki Dadri, where hundreds of volunteers utilized a team-based model to restore local drainage systems, signaling a shift toward community-led environmental restoration.
And that wraps up this week's bulletin. Thank you for joining SA News, and we'll see you next week. Truth that you want to know.